Okay, guys, welcome to another Blimey. It's only now. I know I say this every time I get somebody on this, but I am really excited about getting this young man on to talk to me tonight. It's Mr. Shaun Southern, or sorry, your official title is Mr. Shaun Kikstart Southern. How's that, mate? Welcome, Shaun. Thanks very much for joining me, mate.
All right, thanks.
Really appreciate it. I mean, obviously, I don't know. I've been trying to get a hold of you for quite a while, but a lot of people like yourself, it's not always easy. And I can't remember how I must have saw your name on Facebook, and I fired you off a friend request a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, I was away in Canada, and I got a new phone, and I'm not very used to using it. And suddenly it disappeared, so I had to look at it, find out where it's gone when I come back. So
Good stuff. We're going to keep this. We'll keep this to an hour, Sean. I know from previous experience these things tend to run and run because I know when I get going, and I've got a list of questions, and I've got quite a few questions as well. So we'll keep it to an hour, and we'll just see how we get on with it.
aye, that's great.
If
Yeah.
that's okay, fantastic. So anyway, again, thanks so much for joining me, Sean. Just I always start off. How did you first get involved with computers? What was your first experience with computers?
Well, I was probably a bit of a swot at school, and we had a Commodore PET in,
Oh right, yeah, yeah,
and I just started hanging around after school and using that, and writing things in BASIC, and everything just went blip, blip, blip across the screen. But I think that's once you start seeing that you can control it, you really get into it. And from then on, I think my parents got me a VIC-20 for Christmas. Went down to London to get it, and so that's probably why I stuck with Commodore all the time. VIC-20 to Commodore 64, C16, Amiga. So yeah, I
yeah,
just
yeah.
started
That
with
was
that, and I
yeah.
writing them at home, and I think I saved up and got a machine code cartridge. Started writing in machine code on my own. I don't know, even I had a book or anything. I don't know where I got that from. You couldn't look on the internet.
No, no.
You'll have to forgive me because half these things I can't even remember. People ask me questions, and they know more than I do because it's so long ago. But
Well, this is the problem, Sean. Guys like ourselves who were there at the very beginning, we didn't have this kind of thing. I mean, me talking to yourself about a hero of mine. This was not possible 10 years ago. Never mind, 20 years ago.
yeah, my mum talks to my brother on Skype, and she keeps when it's finished, she keeps saying, how do I switch it off? You don't matter, don't worry. It's just used to the phone having a call and be really expensive. It's amazing what you do now. So.
Absolutely mental. I know. So brilliant. So so when were you when you first got your VIC 20? When was that? 1981, 82, something like that would be. Was
I
it?
I think it's Christmas '81.
81. Aye.
About about 4 or 5 months after that, I got the machine code cartridge, one of these big things you stuck in the back, and
Oh, it was an assembler or something, was it?
yeah, it was a
Yeah.
sort of line assembler. Like you didn't have to type the numbers in, but you could type little LDA and $10 for an address and everything. So I really don't know how I actually learned that. I don't think it came with a book. So
So,
again,
I mean, most people like myself, I was only interested in playing video games or playing games. When I got my Commodore 64, I had a look at the basics and I had a play about with it, and very quickly, I realised I didn't have the ability to do it. I mean, I've spoke to a few guys like Jim Bagley, who's a very good Spectrum programmer, and obviously yourself. What prompted you to go down the programming route rather than the playing games route? Did you just find it more fun?
I did play games. I used to be in arcades. I used to be in the local chippy
Ah, right, right, yeah.
like that, and Asteroids and Pac-Man. But to be honest, that's all I'd probably play now. I really haven't carried on playing games. I don't know. I always like creating my own games. I think I did a fair bit of copying other people's games and maybe putting a bit of a spin on them. I mean, I don't think there's too much original like Kickstart. I
Yeah,
don't know. Started programming, and I think it's great to be able to, move something along the screen yourself.
yeah. I know. I spoke to a guy, Steve Snake. He wrote. I don't know if you're involved with, with emulators at all. Steve done a lot of games for the SNES and the PlayStation, and he did the Commodore 64. And he basically got programming because he couldn't afford to buy his own games. So I thought I'll just figure out how to write my own, and that's how he started.
I mean, I was only 10p in the arcades then, not pound like it is now. I
Yeah.
played Space Invaders in the airport the other day. It was a pound. I couldn't believe it. It's I don't know. I think it was just trying to prove you could do the same, really.
And once you realised, I mean, were you so you were sorry, were you self-taught basically?
I'm
Really?
trying to think how I ever. I mean, I think they might have taught us a bit of basic at school after school. One
Aye.
of just said, but machine code. I've got no idea how I learned that. I mean, there's only so much you can do, so it's not just what the actual things do; it's how you actually put it all together. And I think you learn that yourself. But I really don't know where I got the
Aye.
book. I must have gone to a library or something like that. I'm guessing.
Obviously, obviously nowadays, I mean, the world's your oyster. You just have to go into Google, and there's so much information that's available. Eh?
I mean, there's got to be so many more programming people who program now than 1980. So
Aye, aye. Fantastic. So, what was your the VIC 20? That I'm just going to score these out as I'm asking them. So the VIC 20, that was your first home machine.
yeah, I think it had 3.5K of memory you could use. I think that came up on the title screen, but I think for ages mine was broken. I could only use 2K, so I had to write my games in even half of it. So
Yeah.
what always tried to fit things in where they shouldn't go. If you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah, it's just I was talking to Gary Bracey of Ocean just last week actually, and he was. I mean, I was saying, it's incredible when you think that the memory that you had. I mean, you're writing games in like 2K of memory. Now,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what people always talk about the Twitter icon as having less, probably more K than like the Commodore 64 had, but I mean 1K would be, I don't know, nothing. But the fact that people were getting games in such a small amount of memory was just incredible.
Well, yeah, a lot of that's down to the hardware doing a lot for you. I mean, even then, I mean, you could probably get scrolling code in about sort of 20 bytes if you wanted to, and the screen would move and do everything for you. I mean, if you have
Yeah.
to enter it all like you do now, you just have a big blank canvas. It takes forever. So,
I think you're just being extra modest there. There's obviously a lot of skill involved.
well, yeah, I'm saying you could just do it with it was built for that, so you made the most of it, really.
Yeah, yeah. Brilliant. So when obviously you started writing games, when did you decide to release a game commercially? What kind of prompted that?
Well, I mean, what I did, I wrote some games, and there was a magazine. It was out every week, because it might have been PCW or Computer Games Weekly. I have no
Aye,
idea.
aye.
And I actually put a classified advert in the back. So a few people were doing it, and sold them on tape for five or something like that. I must have sold about 100 of them on my own, just putting adverts in. And then we saw someone advertising in the same magazine, Mr. Chip, who you probably heard about,
Yep,
Magnet.
yep.
They were in Llandudno, which was not too far. We used to go to Rhyl on holiday, so we just drove up there one day and met him, and he did the business for quite a while. We were together doing things like that with the business. I wrote the games.
Brilliant. So you were actually selling games, just Shaun Sutherland and your mum and dad's address basically, and that was
APR,
about.
probably handwritten cassette.
And presumably you had to duplicate, or did you just write the game onto each tape, or did you have a sort of
I
yeah.
must have had it. He must have loaded one in and then saved it back out again. I guess that's how it worked. I say so long ago. Can't remember. Didn't a mass tape to tape machine. No, I've only sold about 50, I think, if I was lucky.
Fantastic. So what was it? Sorry, what was the very first game you actually released commercially?
I think I did one of those like submarine games where you move the submarine, the things along the top, and you shoot up at them. They did one like that, and I think possibly the Olympic skier one. I think I did those two on the tape, and I think that Mr. took at least one. I took definitely one of them on the skiing one. I think.
Aye, well I've got to say that was one of the earliest games I remember playing. I've got to put my hands up. It was a copy. it was on a big tape, and I loved it absolutely. I'm sure it was called. Was it Olympic Skier? Then was it also called Skier 64 or something? I think it was.
Yeah, I think again I was thinking TV, wasn't I? Like Ski Sunday, Kikstart. Really after me. I think I called it that when I sent it out, but I think they changed it to Olympic Skier. And
Aye, that's a brilliant game. I still do actually. I've actually played it maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago actually.
as I was saying, like you make the most of the screen would do the scrolling for you, so you just draw another line of trees and it'd all scroll. You didn't have to do any code for that; it just happened. That might even have been in BASIC as well.
I think it was the first game. It was one of the first games that I ever saw where it actually it gave you a rating when you did the ski jump. And I thought you had the down, no, the slalom, then the ski jump, then was it the downhill? I think it was called. And
Yeah,
it rated you, doesn't it? I think, yeah.
yeah, you had to land the right angle. I mean, that was a bit like Kickstart as well. I mean, it is so many things you could do. I love those digital joysticks where it's all about the timing as opposed to how far you moved something.
Aye.
It's like someone I work with called them twitchy games, and there's like really sort of, like Asteroids and Pac-Man. It's all just down to
Aye.
pushing the key at the right time.
It's either on or off. There's not
Yeah.
on to a certain degree sort of thing. Yeah.
All down to the timing, and you could make a lot of gameplay with that, even without trying. So
Aye. I think I know. I certainly found, obviously coming from an 8-bit background to like digital joysticks, when you suddenly got something like the Xbox 360 and it was analog, it was like, whoa, this just feels a bit weird, you know?
yeah, like you'd shove it over left, right.
Yeah, brilliant. What was it? I saw it. You reckon sort of Olympic ski was possibly the first one you released. Did you when you were working for Mr. Chip? Was it Mr. Aye, it's Mr. Chip. Was it you basically in your bedroom, or did you eventually did you get a premises that you went to? Or?
I mean, he had an office. He was selling other games that he'd either found or bought in from someone or created, because he thought that the industry was going to take off as it did. And I always just used to send games to him, and I was sort of self-employed really, but he just did the selling. And he went and got deals with people, which obviously I'm sure you'll come to it, but Mastertronics and everything. He did all the dealing with those and everything.
So you were literally just working through home, sending him the goods, and then presumably you'd send you a check once you got the game.
Oh well, you think based on sales and everything. Some of them did well, some of them didn't. But yeah, I never really got asked to write anything. I just sort of go, oh, what shall I do next? Oh, I'll do this game, and they say, oh yeah, we'll sell that, or oh, fruit. I think once we converted one of our games. We took a car out of it and put a motorbike in it, and sold it as Speed King 2 or something for the C16. It was one of those like with all the dots. I mean, that was an arcade game. It was Knight Rider or something in the arcade. It was like vector graphics. All you had white lines.
Oh, aye, yeah, I know what you're talking about. Aye.
That's been the basis of most of my games. Curving road routine.
That's the thing back then. I mean, there was no. It was a blank canvas. It was a completely new thing, and so you could literally just make it up as you went along, couldn't you? There was no foundations to how to run a software company, really. Yeah.
Well, no, I don't know where I got any ideas from there. I say apart from copying other things, but suddenly I've done another game. Here you go, and suddenly it being in the shops.
So how long did it usually take you then, Shaun, to write a game? Generally,
I mean, the Amiga games took longer, but it took 8-bit. Anything took a couple of weeks. They were quite sort of linear sort of things, as in there's 10 levels and you have to get through them, and they get harder and harder. So once you got the main bit done, it was just a case of making the other levels look a bit more interesting or play a bit differently. So I mean, there was no huge big adventure games or anything like that, you couldn't fit them in the memory, so there's only so much you could do anyway. So, but yeah, I think some of them took a week, some of them took a little bit longer. I think you get things like Trailblazer, probably a couple of months. But I mean that mainly because other people would start getting involved. Then, we don't like that. Can we change this or anything?
That's when it gets complicated, eh?
That's why I just chucked it out after a couple of weeks. I've had enough of this one now. Do something else.
Superb. So you basically worked from home at that point. Now, so I was looking at Wikipedia. Now I know we all know how accurate Wikipedia is. It said here that Mr. Chip Software was founded by yourself and Andrew Morris. Was he the guy that owned the company? No, was that a lot of rubbish?
A guy called Doug Braisby, who I still see occasionally because he lives in Llandudno. I don't live there. I say he set it up on his own, and I approached him, and I think Andrew came on as a trainee, YTS trainee, and
is that right? Yeah.
We started doing the games between us. He was doing all the graphics and a lot of the design, and I was just sort of snowed under with the coding. But between us, I think he'd be the arty one, I'd be the getting everything mechanically working one. So I think between us we sort of fit together well, and but that was for sort of, I mean, he did some graphics for the title screen, I think, on Trailblazer, and then by the time we're doing Kikstart 2, he was doing all the graphics because mine were hopeless, obviously.
Yeah. So, what was your first game? I mean, I've got a list of games that the sort of standout games for me. Obviously, I mean, Kikstart and then Kikstart 2. They were just awesome games. I mean, what you mentioned earlier? You reckon you copied Kikstart of something else? I mean, that's the first.
I think there was a BBC program called
Was it?
Kikstart, spelt Kick, even though the music.
Is that right? Yeah, really.
But it was like motorbikes, and they were driving up barrels and jumping through hoops with fire and everything. So yeah, it was a complete rip-off of that. You could do what you like, really. Those days, steal the music, do anything.
Well, of course, the music was taken straight. You'll be old enough to remember Kickstart and was it BBC One or something with Peter Purvis, and it was all these kids driving motorbikes.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. That's what it was sort of copied, really, from the idea and the music. So.
Aye. I mean, I've lost. Was that released? I think the original Kickstart was under Mr. Chip, wasn't it? I think it got re-released under Mastertronic as a budget game. I think it was. Yeah. And obviously, Kickstart had the what do you call it? The design. You could design your own courses as well.
Yeah, you could chop little bits up, and you could make the jumps really long, so you didn't have enough time to get over them unless you really sort of got the timing right.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that was fun. People liked playing with that, and I think you'd save courses out, couldn't you, and send them to each other.
I think you did. I didn't have the creativity to make my own courses enough, but loved it to bits. Like it was, the first one was quite frustrating because depending where you fell off, it would then it would drive along the bottom for a wee bit.
Yeah, because it had to give you enough speed. I think there were certain restart points, so until you hit the next one, you couldn't carry on.
Aye. And it was all about sussing out what you couldn't go very quick over gates. Then there's these little I can't remember what they were called, or little bumpy bits you couldn't go quick over either. But it was all about, obviously it's one of these games. The more you played it, you got to learn. And
yeah, some you had too fast, some you couldn't wheelie on, some you had to wheelie on. Yeah,
brilliant, awesome games. I was going to say most of your games are kind of arcade based, but you also did Hero of the Golden Talisman. Was that one that you programmed, Shaun?
Was that, sorry?
Sorry, was that one that you wrote, Hero of the Golden Talisman? Aye.
She tried to copy the Mission Impossible guy graphics as well myself.
That's right, yeah.
I don't know why I don't know why I did that one. I was quite a sort of a, as you'd say, an adventure-y one rather than a twitchy one, but I really don't know. I think I probably just thought, oh, I'd like to do a game with a maze in it, and it takes longer to play. I don't know if it's any better.
I think that was published by Mastertronic, I think it was, isn't it? I think
Mastertronic's Added Dimension games.
Aye, that's it, Matt. That's right. That was one of their kind of their more
the expensive ones.
It was $2.99 instead of $1.99.
They used to do launches of the games, and I mean that was before like all the Amiga car games. But they took us down to London and they gave it all the journalists on a boat. I wondered why they'd done that, but I realised the boat's sailing down the middle of the Thames for an hour and a half. They can't go home. They can't just have a drink or go home. They're stuck there, have to play the games. So it worked pretty well.
Is that right? Really?
Someone told me that's why they did it. Oh yeah. They're not getting off till they've had a good look at the games.
But methods in the madness there, I think. Brilliant. Obviously, you mentioned Trailblazer. I mean, I loved that. I think there was a sequel to Trailblazer. I think was there.
Cosmic Causeway.
That was the sequel. Aye.
Yeah, that was using all the tricks of the Commodore 64 and a few they didn't know about really, just to make it look. I mean, that was trying to make it look like Space Harrier with the ground. But I mean, once I've seen Space Harrier in the arcade, sort of worked out how they were doing it, because they had to be doing it. The hardware wasn't that different. So yeah, then it sort of blended into a bit of Space Harrier as well.
So how did you come about to make a game like Trailblazer? Because it was completely original. I mean, obviously Ballblazer that was kind of similar graphics, obviously, but
I think there was a game called I can never remember its name. I keep thinking Hyperball or something, but it was someone will tell you. It was a side-on scroller where you had a guy with a helmet on and he had to run and jump over hurdles.
Metrocross.
That's it,
I actually made a video of that last week, believe it or not. Metrocross, yeah.
And basically I just turned that round, and that's all it was really, because putting things in the lanes. But because of the hardware limitations we got, we could only basically have 2 colours. They just had to be in 5 lanes, one to the other. I mean, we've done a version of Trailblazer for, I don't know if you've heard of the Gizmondo.
Oh, I certainly have. Yeah, it's life,
Did a
unfortunately.
really good version of it for that. It was like going up and down and everything, and each lane was different, and you had to jump all these big leaps of faith and everything. But I don't think many people saw that because it disappeared. The Gizmondo disappeared.
Unfortunately, aye.
But yeah, so I don't know. It's just I worked out how to do 3D for Trailblazer. It just, and the scrolling raster lines, which again are in a hell of a lot of games, Lotus, all things like that, because that's what the hardware could do. You know, make most of it. I say a lot of people thought, how can you do this on a VIC-20? Well, that's actually all it can do. It can't do much. You try and do a 3D in it, you've had it. So
yeah, I never actually thought about Trailblazer as being Metrocross.
Aye, well, that's the
90
idea.
degrees, aye.
Yeah, there's no new ideas in the world, just different angles on them.
Now here's one as well. When I was looking at the list of games that you've written, there was one I thought that can't be right. Pac-Mania in 1983, but that was before Namco brought it out.
It was before they used the name. Yeah, I wonder if I could sue them for.
I think you should.
I just I don't know what. One day I wanted to write a Pac-Man game, and it was quite easy to write a Pac-Man game with the graphics and you know the. I don't think I ever really knew how the actual ghosts worked in the real Pac-Man. I just made them mine different speeds. So the trouble is, you'd be going around chasing one, the other one would be catching up, and you'd run into him. So it looked like they were quite intelligent, but they weren't. But and all we did was we had these little H's you drove into. I don't know they were much help, but they were called hypermaze ports, and they'd take you somewhere else. They'd probably drop you in the middle of the ghosts. But yeah. How we got away with putting that one out as well. I mean, are we ever own it? Well, I'm not sure. They'd go mad if you did it these days.
That's the thing. I mean, back then, you know.
85, wasn't it?
I'm not sure, and I didn't write down the date. According to this, well, again, Wikipedia, 1983. It says.
Ooh, I don't know about that.
Is it?
That
was early on, wasn't it? So it may have actually been. I don't know when Pac-Mania came out. I think that was slightly later. That was early 90s, late 80s, I think it was.
Yeah, like isometric version, yeah.
Aye, that's right. Yeah, superb. I was going to say, you mentioned it earlier as well. Was it all just the Commodore machines that you wrote games for? Did you never write anything apart from the Amiga? Obviously, well, that's the Commodore
conversions, just conversions for the ST because they were very similar. But I never did any. I mean, some games were turned in for the Spectrum, but I never even looked at Z80 or Spectrum or anything like that. I never even had one. I think I did a competition at school as to who could get a computer first with me and my friend, and he got a BBC Micro. So that's another way off going altogether, I think. So, yeah, the VIC. I just don't know. No, I got that one in the end, but
yeah. So what games? I think you wrote Kikstart, Trailblazer, and Olympic Skier for the C16 oblique +4. Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of the games where they didn't even take up the memory. Well, they certainly didn't take up the memory of the 64, and I think they wanted me to sort of write more 64 games. But the C16 was like, it got like nice few little things of its own. It got lots of different colours you could use. Got all the scrolling, was a bit bit faster, but it had 16 memory, didn't it, instead of about 4 that the VIC did. But I don't know, maybe I was a bit scared by the C64 and all the memory it got. But, yeah, I think at one point, because of all the Mastertronics doing them, I must have had about half of the top 10 of the C16.
Is that right? Yeah.
These little things every week in the magazine, it was like top 10 C16 games. They're all Mastertronic, and half of them are mine. So I did a lot of games on it, but they were very similar to the C64.
Yeah. Was the C16 the +4 was a more was it what differed between the C16 and the +4? Because the kind of same. One game would run in both systems, did it not, or was that rubbish?
I think they were the same. I mean, I can't remember. It was 30 years ago.
Yeah.
I'd forgotten it was called the +4 as well. I think maybe one just had a bit more memory again. So
I don't think it was a very. They were both very short-lived. I think they were, weren't they?
Yeah. Dark. Remember.
Have you ever seen? Well, you probably haven't seen it. There's a version Green Beret. I don't know if you've heard it, an arcade game.
I remember that game. Yeah.
Well, it was released for the C16, and it's one of the worst games you'll ever ever have the pleasure to see. It's terrible. How on earth? I mean, the guy runs, and when he gets to the edge of the screen, it then goes, and then he runs, and the whole all action freezes. It's like, how did that get released? And I think it was Ocean. Well, it was Imagine label under the Ocean. They released it.
Oh, I've seen a few bad games, but most of them they're fun, even if they're a bit jerky.
Aye, nah, there's nothing. You can't beat playing a bad game. So I take it was the C64 quite a bit more powerful than the plus 4 and C16.
Yeah, it's just the memory again, I think, and possibly it ran a bit faster. But having that much more memory, I mean, you could just keep a lot more in at once, do a lot more background graphics and things.
Aye.
Trailblazer probably didn't use a quarter of the memory of the C64.
Really?
Yeah. I had a little program now I'd load in to do the line assembly again. I was still using machine code. Most other people had moved away from that by then, but I was still doing that actually in about 2000. So first job I had to go to, I couldn't do any C, a proper job. I mean, didn't do C. I had to learn it in the first week. So.
So what was it easier to program for, Shaun, the C64 or plus 4?
I don't think there was too much difference in those. In the C64, they probably both had sprites as far as I can remember. But I did quite a few games for both because they were, you could just convert stuff over really. But I don't know, they were both easy. Both you could do the scrolling the same way. I think. Can't really remember.
Yeah. I take it what's it called, the plus 4 didn't have like a SID chip or that, did it? It was only the C64 had that, I think.
Right. Yeah. Oh yeah, you could just do sort of beeps and things.
Yeah. Aye, but I think I mean certainly your games, when you talk to people about the plus 4 or C16, you just think of it as terrible games. But the games that you brought out for it were, quite rightly they were in the top 10 all the time because they were probably the best.
No, I think that was because there only were 10 of them. So.
You're being too modest again, I think. Excellent. So it was Mr. Chip software. Did you ever own Mr. Chip software at all, Shaun? No, you just worked for them.
Mr. Chip was basically the agent and the business guy. So I've never really owned a company or done anything. I just carry on doing the programming. I'm still doing it now. So.
And so obviously Mr. Chip became Magnetic Fields.
Yeah, that was sort of when we did all work together. It wasn't like I never saw them, so we were all together. But when we did the 16-bit, they wanted a bit of a better name and a sort of more grandiose name, and they had a big the Wagner sample at the start of all the games, the Magnetic Fields logo, which I'm sure Andy did. So I think that was coinciding with that.
So I've got here what prompted the name change. I suppose Mr. Chip. Yeah, it's not got quite the same effect, does it?
It just sounds a bit sort of 8-bitty.
I suppose that's what it was enough, but yeah. So obviously you worked on classics. I mean, you talk to people about the Amiga games, and if you say to people what's your favourite Amiga game, your top 3 Amiga games, whatever, chances are some of your games will appear in there. I mean, Supercars 1 and 2, Kid Chaos, which I wasn't aware of. I think I'd moved on to PC at that point.
I think most people had.
What's that?
Most people had, I think, or they'd gone somewhere else. That was one of these games that took two years to write and didn't do amazingly well. It got fairly good reviews. It was supposed to be like Sonic, wasn't it? And if you saw the original character that was in it, it looked exactly like Sonic. It was Cosmic Kitten.
Really? Yeah.
Like your hairdo. It's very, very similar. I've probably spent far too long copying other people's ideas and just changing them slightly, but it's really, again, one of these was using all the effects the Amiga could do to try and get more out of it and everything. It just, I don't know, took 2 years to write.
Really? So was that kind of one of the last games for the Amiga then, Shaun, that you worked on?
The last one I worked on, yeah. After that, we started doing PC rally games.
What was it? RAC Rally you worked on?
Yeah, we did about 3 of those.
Yeah. Was that was the one that had the windscreen wipers with the weather and that as well? I think, eh?
Well, one of them did
Ah,
certainly. I'll have to look them up myself.
that was
We did 3 of those. One was in a big bright orange box. The third one, I think. And they started using, all the video, the hardware that the PC could use eventually. But that was the last one though. Kid Chaos, really.
Obviously to backtrack. I mean the Lotus trilogy. I mean, I think without a shadow of doubt, they really showcased what the Amiga could do. I've got to say, my personal favourite was always the first one. I always preferred that.
Yeah, when we did the second one, a lot of people said, "Oh, you've broken it. You've changed all the laps. We like the laps and everything." But I thought you may as well try and because obviously we were trying to do a version of Outrun, weren't we? So.
Well, yeah, I've actually got. That's one of the questions that I was asked. In fact, I'm just going to jump to it actually. What was I saying here? This is a chap called Mad Commodore. He's asking, using the Lotus 2 graphic engine, what are the limitations, i.e., number of total colours on the scaling bitmaps, etc., and could you possibly use it to convert the arcade game Outrun, despite these limitations? Yeah.
I think it was basically a version of Outrun. I mean, we had the things going up and down, the road going up and down, everything disappearing behind hills, going around corners. I don't think it was too different. It was really just working out a way to do that on the Amiga hardware compared with the arcade hardware. But the scaling bitmaps, we basically our graphics guy Andrew just drew them. I think it was 13 different sizes, and they moved smoothly and then jumped a bit bigger. And we going fast enough, you didn't notice. But of course, that's one of the limitations. We didn't have enough space to have 200 different sizes, and we didn't have enough processor power to scale them down in real time.
Yeah. I mean, sorry.
All just cutting the right corners. So I think what half of programming is about, cutting the corners that no one notices, that makes a big difference.
Yeah, I mean, before Lotus came along, I mean, what did we have racing wise? Crazy Cars. I don't know if you remember Crazy Cars. It was it Titus Software, and they were like the worst. It was a perfect example of an early 16-bit game. It was all like fur coat and knickers. It was like beautiful graphics. Gameplay was atrocious. And it had sampled sound. It was terrible. And then Lotus came along, and it's just like wow.
Well, I was trying to copy what the arcades were doing, and I sort of worked out a way of getting the road to move smoothly and everything. And it was pushing it to the limit, really. You just get one line drawn for the road, and then the blitter would do this, the hardware would do it, and then you'd just be ready to set up to do the next one and everything. It was really pushed that. So on the ST, it was about half the speed, I think. So to do it slightly differently. But again, it all comes back to Trailblazer and those coloured lines that go into the distance, just changing.
That was quite a common sort of effect to use to convey speed, wasn't it? Yeah.
Well, that's what the Commodore stuff could do. I dread the poor people trying to put that on a Spectrum. They were all. How else were they trying to convert it for? What would be a equivalent? Oh no, I think they did a C64 version and a Spectrum version. And it was just like chug chug chug.
Really? What was this Lotus we're talking about here?
Sorry.
What was the game, Shaun? They tried to put in the Spectrum?
No, I think they did put the Lotus games on them. Well, I think Gremlin converted them.
Ah, right. I wasn't aware of that. Let me have a look at that.
It's never, but it just showed that the Amiga was sort of made for doing that sort of game.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is as well, it wasn't just the graphics. I mean, even now looking at it, yeah, we're used to arcade games, arcade quality games, Ridge Racer and that kind of stuff. But even now, when you look at it, it's still a very, very impressive game. Then that was it all sprite based? I mean, it was all hand drawn, presumably, wasn't it?
Yeah, I say the artist would draw the sign and then shrink it down 13 times, and we'd just have enough space to have all those in, maybe 8 or 10 of them on a course. And it's just a case of using the blitter, the hardware thing, that just put them on the screen at the right point, and simple enough maths to work out where to put things. The control was just like on or off, left or right. If you're going around a corner, you either pull it into the corner or there's no basis in reality at all. It's more like sort of a 2D game that, like Metrocross, that looked better as a 3D game. But I guess it probably wasn't too different to Outrun how they control it, although say with the steering wheel, a bit more analog in there. But ours was just like flying around the corner, tap tap tap, and I don't know, it seemed to work.
It certainly did. I mean, the sound as well. I mean, the music. It was I think it was at Lotus. Lotus One had the in-car stereo. I think. Or did
Yeah,
Lo-
and probably spent a couple of days drawing a stereo from his own car. I think. So someone actually contacted us and says, "What's the stereo? What's the stereo? Can we buy it?" Probably not anymore.
Who
But,
did the music for the Lotus games?
we got that. I think mainly it was Barry Leach who was.
Oh, aye.
He certainly did some of them. I don't know if he did Kickstart, not Kickstart, Supercars as well. But yeah, he was the famous "You will not copy this game" example.
I was just going to come to that because somebody asked me that, and I listened to it today. There was a YouTube video where it's got it, and I was listening to it, and I thought, nah, he's having a laugh. That somebody's made that up. So was that genuine? Was that actually in there? Was it?
It was really, really quiet. Can you imagine the legal implications of someone doing that these days? There'd be people suing them saying, "Oh, I've been, talking in my sleep or whatever."
So it was genuinely saying, "Do not copy." It was like, "Do not copy." It was like, or it's like, "Do not copy this game."
It was so low you could barely hear it. If you wouldn't, I doubt you'd be able to hear it. I think it was just put in more of a joke. I don't think it was meant to really stop people, but sort of
But
thing.
it is. So it is genuinely in the soundtrack then, yeah.
Pretty sure it is. Yeah, it's
Well,
this.
aye.
You have a pro tracker or sound tracker with all the things. I think we got these things, and it's on one of them really low, so you couldn't hear it, but it was there.
I'll send after this. I'll send you the link on Facebook, and you can listen to it for yourself. I listened to it and I thought, I'm not asking Shaun that. That's somebody's just taking the Mickey, but
Oh no, yeah.
so it was all true then. Superb.
In the first Lotus, you put your high score tables in and things like that, and I made up some crazy names like sort of Mickey takes of like all the Alan Prost and all these people like that. I mean, I think when I sent the game to Lotus, to Gremlin, one of the screens had a curry recipe on it, and they said, "Oh, come on, you've got to be serious now." I was like, "Really? Have I?" They left all my crazy names. Now you'll probably find there's like T hairy boots on. I don't know. It was still quite Wild West.
That was before, obviously, your FIFAs now. They've probably got a budget of 50 million just to get Ronaldo's proper name, and
Yeah.
but that wasn't a thing then. One thing that I suppose, if I'm honest, I was slightly disappointed, like a few people, was the lack of damage in the cars. It just kind of ding and it just bounce. Was that written into the contract, by Lotus?
I think they might have not wanted it, but it certainly made things easier for us. I mean, we did the rally game, and there was bits falling off the cars there, and they were like supposedly proper rally cars, say it, and Skoda, all those things. But I think Lotus might have, yeah. I think I've read that myself somewhere. I probably don't know it, that Lotus didn't want the cars looking damaged. So.
Yeah. I right again on Wikipedia, so it may not be true. Am I right in thinking that Lotus 2 had you had a game called Duck Shoot?
Oh yeah,
On the Vic 20. Was that actually a wee Easter egg? Was that in the game?
Yeah, well, I think Lotus 1 had one called Rocks, which was like my sort of type of game where you just got a spaceship and all these asteroids come. They keep getting faster and faster and faster, and you have to sort of shoot some of them you can shoot, some you can't, and you just have to last as long as you like. Endless runner thingy. But that was hidden in Lotus 1, I think, and then Duck Shoot was basically Carnival from the arcades, which is like an old.
Yeah, I remember Carnival.
Basically, I'd be sitting. I wrote a version of that for the C16, Vic 20 as well, and C64. I think they called it Quasi Quacks, which is.
My mind boggles.
Yeah, but I mean, I'd be sitting there at the arcade copying the dots down every time the screen stopped, so I could, that's what the duck looks like, right? And then, by the time we got the Amiga, it was easy to put a version of that in there. And then people would be saying, "Oh, what game's in the next one?" We had Pod in Lotus 3. I'm not sure.
What was that? Sorry, Pod. I loved that. That was a wee kind of shoot 'em up, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was like.
That was.
Everyone tells me it was like Grid Runner, but I've never seen it. I thought it was more like Centipede because.
Yeah. Well, that was kind of Grid Runner, Jeff Minter based Grid Runner on Centipede basically. But yeah, fantastic.
anything with a grid in it.
So were these games put in because you had the space, or was it always, a bit of space left over? Let's stick a wee
Well,
bonus in.
I probably got Lotus finished, and I was waiting for the art. So I thought, oh, what should I do? Oh, we'll put a version of that in. But I mean, no, you start putting Easter eggs in games these days, I get in trouble, wouldn't you? So,
Aye, aye.
cared then. Oh, right. Oh, there's another game. But it's all, people go, oh yeah, you've got to get Lotus. There's this little game in it and everything. So I think it all helps. But it's more something to do.
Brilliant. So obviously, when you started coding, it was just yourself, really. Then, Shaun. I mean, how did you find it changed when you got into sort of Amiga coding? Were you having to go into an office to code at that point, or could you still work from home? And
Still working at home. It's still only
really,
me. Yeah, just only me coding and Andrew doing the graphics.
so what this is for Magnet when you were doing like the Lotus games as well?
Yeah.
Really? Ah, right.
And all the supercars, and I think once we got to the rally, we had another guy helping out who could program. But I think by the time we got the rally, we actually had an office then. So, they're after the Amiga and everything.
Mm-hmm. So what? How many? Like, well, we'll take the Lotus game. How many people were working on that then?
Well, it's just myself and Andrew really.
And that was it. Just the two of yous, really. Wow.
4 or 5 months really to get one of them done. Then we go to a Supercars, and then we do another Lotus one. So we sort of swapped those over for a while.
Yeah. So what's your favourite? I actually made a video all on Gremlin graphics, and I had obviously featured the 3 Lotus games, and I was a bit, shall we say, critical of Lotus 3, and I upset a lot of people.
They go, oh, come on, we need another Lotus game. I thought, well, I can't really put any more in. Every time I put more in, it slows down. Like the car going along the side of a mountain, it's like, oh, just to make that effect, we had to draw really big sprites, and it started slowing down. And I thought, don't know. They had the construction kit in that as well, again, where it had just like pieced together bits of course. But you could like type a long code and your friends could play it because it was all like fractally generated out of lumps. But I say really there wasn't much else you could do by then because you still got the same Amiga, wasn't getting any faster, and they want more on the screen. They want. My favourite was the second one because I loved all the different weather scenes and it was like Outrun, like just trying to get over the line, and you just be crawling, slowing down, over the line, carry on, checkpoint, carry on. I mean, the first one is very good for the time, the sort of the tense of running out of fuel and everything like that. But my favourite is the second one.
I think you're right. Actually, I don't think you can compare the first two. The first one was more like a racing game. The second one was more kind of Outrun. So they're two kind of different games. I mean, graphically and the actual, excuse the pun, the engine were both super impressive in both games, but they were different types of game, really, weren't they?
Yeah. I think I'm glad we changed it, even if anyone didn't like it, because got to do both types of game really at the same thing. So.
Mm-hmm. And what did you make of the third one? Was that?
Well, as I say, it
was in space, wasn't it? I think.
You do a third one, but what else can you put in? It was like, there was a space level, there was level tunnels and trucks coming the other way. It
was a bit kind of almost similar to Trailblazer. Was there not tiles where you hit and they would give you a boost? I think.
Yeah.
I think there was, yeah.
Really well run out of ideas then.
So,
they said, oh yeah, everyone wants a third one. Great.
What can we do now? Aye. So the last game was what was it called again? Sorry, What was it called again? Kid Chaos. That was your last game. After that was released, at what point did you leave the company, or did you decide to go and do something different?
We were doing the rally games for about 3 years after that. It wasn't until about 2. Right. I think we'd been doing a rally game for about 2 years, and I just wanted some time off, and we didn't really do any more then. And it was a few years later I just got a proper job. So.
Alright, so are you not? I'm going to jump a bit ahead of you, but so are you not programming for a living anymore?
I am, yeah. I say proper job programming. I was working for a company called Warthog for a while, and they got bought out by Gizmondo.
Oh, right, yeah.
Mondo said, "Oh, we just said, oh, how about we do this on Gizmondo? And Trailblazer actually went out on Gizmondo with, a few of us in the team doing it then. So.
And you said that was actually quite a good version.
It was certainly different because it wasn't just a flat thing. All the things went up and down and everything. I'm sure you find a video of it somewhere. It was much more design involved in the levels. It wasn't just, let's put a blue one here and a yellow one here. Yeah. You really jumping from one to the other. But again, it was really, gotta have another go, which is sort of the things I like to play. I can't imagine playing games for hours.
No, I'm exactly the same.
When you're looking at them all day, it's...
So, just to kind of go back, Shaun, obviously, back, we're talking 1984, 85, the internet wasn't even a thing back then. I mean, it was the games magazines, your Zap 64s, your Crash for the Spectrum. Did you have much involvement with these guys, and what?
I don't. I mean, we when we worked in Llandudno, it was quite a way away from all the games magazines, so it'd be a day out for them to come and visit people in Llandudno, right in, because I'd go up there occasionally. Day out for them from London to Llandudno, it would be a long way. But I used to remember the magazines. I'd be going to Smith's, seeing there's a new review out. Yeah, what do they think? I've got a bucket full of reviews and things.
Thing about, I mean, somebody, I can't remember who was talking about that. It was it Virgin who used to, what was it called? It was Virgin. They released games, and they used to actually feature the programmer and the inlays. And what they wanted to try and do was, people like groups. They wanted to try and get that affinity with programmers, so you could see that. And and I'm not saying this because I'm talking to you, but any Shaun Southern game I knew was going to be good, and you never had a bad game. And you bought it because of who programmed it. You knew it was going to be that type of game that you liked.
Aye, well, that's good.
So yeah, I don't think you wrote a bad game. Did you ever meet Jeff Minter? I mean, he still lives in Wales. Is it Carmarthen?
I've never met him. He lives in Wales somewhere, which is not too far from me. But I used to play his games all the time, the Camels one. That's one I would actually play over and over.
What one was it? What one did you like?
I think it was the first one, Attack the Mutant Camels.
Aye, like the big ATATs walking.
Yeah.
Aye,
defend, start, cross with everything. That's what he used to do, yeah.
Aye, well, he obviously based up. Sorry?
Joysticks built to last, then you'd be like... and these little, gotta be careful how you move the things, or...
So you never went to like any of the offices, like Zap offices or that at all, no?
I don't think so. I think a few of them came up, and I remember them having like some photo shoot of us all in Llandudno, but I don't remember going to the offices, no. I bet you knew any other programmers. I say, I remember one guy I used to know, Gremlin, that was about it, when he did Zool. But only because we'd go down to, we'd work in where we were, and then we'd go to Gremlin for about the last week of finishing a game, and we'd be there like all day and all night, getting all the bugs out till it was done. And that's it. And they'd all done, everyone's happy, send it off, print 10,000 of them. Not like they do now. It's how we'll put some more bug fixes out.
Of course, back then it was you had to get it right first time, or else you couldn't release a patch or anything now, like you can nowadays. Yeah,
it was still the same for quite a while. I remember one of our games we did recently, they found a bug in it because it was on Nintendo DS, and because they printed all these cartridges, they can't do anything with it. Can't get past level 208 or something.
Is that right? Yeah.
But yeah. It was just one of them a while ago, but they had to get it done, I say. So we'd be there for Gremlin for a week, just sort of sleeping on the floor, really.
See the early days in Shaun, did you like bug testing? Did you just play your own games? Did you bug test your own games, or did you?
I think Mr. Chip, another guy who used to help with the testing. Because you never really find all your own bugs. You play the game the same way. Someone else plays it differently, and then they find a bug there. Someone just says, if I push all the buttons down at the same time, it breaks. Why?
It's like, well, what'd you expect?
Well, I mean, yeah, I think someone else was testing them. I think they might have even sent them out to people. Some
Yeah,
people did.
yeah. Did you ever go to any of the sort of gaming shows back in the day?
I remember going to Earl's Court and things like that a
That
couple of
was
times.
aye.
When they were got Lotus 2 piled up. I mean, you used to go to buy the games, didn't you? They got Lotus 2 in the big green box piled up everywhere around. All the shops, all little shops in Earl's Court Computer Show were selling it. I was like, wow. Too many of them. But yeah, that's about it. I mean, there might have been conferences and things, but I never went to any of those.
I get the feeling, Sean, you're quite a sort of private person. Because I mean, obviously, some programmers like to get out there and they're into everything. Because you never really, to be honest, I didn't actually know what you looked like until I saw a picture on Facebook, obviously. Whereas other programmers were kind of quite famous, but you just did your talking with the keyboard, I think.
Well, I think a lot of it was because we were all in Landudno and people thought, "Where's
Where is that?
yeah? Can I get a tube there?" No, all right. So I was not bothered. I certainly don't want to be plastered all over magazines or anything or YouTube.
Oops. Brilliant. So obviously, I mean, do you have much? You don't program games for a living anymore. I mean,
But, yeah, I do. Still do that.
is it still? Right. Okay. So what kind of games are you working on now? Then is it mobile games or?
Yeah, we're working for a company called Playdemic who are doing a golf game, so that's doing okay. But it's still nice, still fun programming. I never got into the business side or anything, so.
Good. And do you still work from home when you're doing this? Yeah.
No, it's a proper office now.
It's rather ironic that you worked from home when you didn't have the internet, and now you've got the internet. You go into an office.
What I find you just have to be there. I work from home because it was only me working on it. I didn't have to talk to anyone else. Now there's a bigger team and everything. You have to talk to them all the time.
I suppose. So obviously, I mean, you're talking to me for YouTube. Do you get approached quite often to do these talks? I mean, I don't know if you're aware of the sort of big computer shows that like Play Glasgow, Play Manchester. There's sort of retro gaming and that. Do you get involved in these at all?
I say I've done lots of sort of people send emails and everything like that, and with loads of questions on. And to be honest, that's quite hard work sometimes, filling them all in, trying to think of answers. A lot of times it's the same questions, but
aye, I can imagine.
I've never done this before.
Hopefully this is a bit more fun when you're actually talking rather than you're typing, but
yeah, I think I tend to babble a bit, but
that's you know what, that's what I love about this sort of thing. Just you're hearing it, straight from the horse's mouth sort of thing,
Okay.
But brilliant. I mean, do you still? Obviously, we're talking about stuff that you did 30 years ago. Do you find it quite surprising that people still want to talk about things that you did 30 years ago? Or?
Well, as long as they don't talk about my graphics, because they were awful. Well, there's always. I mean, my favourite music was probably from 30 years ago as well. And there's lots of chances to see all those bands again now. They've run out of money, so
well, that's exactly the thing. A good game's a good game. Doesn't matter when it,
Good song's a good song.
Aye. All right. Some games that I used to like as a kid, things like Bruce Lee. Great game. Now when I look at them, I'm like, that's a bit. It's I've got to say a lot of games on the 8-bit now I wouldn't play. They were great at the time, but you see them for what they are. But arcade games like your Kickstarts and that kind of stuff, they're just as much fun to play now.
The thing is, I mean, you could do really good graphics and still have the same gameplay, but everyone seems to think that the gameplay needs to be all smooth and 3D. I like 2D games. You're looking at a screen. It's 2D. It gives you a bit more. It's just I think you feel actually more connected to it because it's 2D and you're moving a joystick around than into where you are and.
Yep. One of my favourite games of all time, and it's a game I only recently discovered, is Berserk. I don't know if you know the game at all.
I'm not. I don't really play very many games.
It was a game that came out in like 1982, and it's the most basic. You're in a maze, you control a little man, and there's robots, and it's the simplest game ever. But it's absolutely rock hard. But it's as you say, it's the essence of gaming. You move in 8 directions, and you fire, and that's it. And it's just
I say it's all about the timing then, isn't it?
Twitch.
If you wait like 1 second later, you can get So they're shimmying through asteroid fields and things with the thing. All you're doing is turning left and right and just timing it.
Aye. I mean, games back then are simple to play, whereas now, like your FIFAs and all that, there's 15 different million buttons. I can't be bothered with these. I'd much rather play Robotron or something, an arcade game, a Twitch shooter, whatever.
Yeah, I say if you can afford them now, I believe it's £1 for Space Invaders.
Aye. Well, MAME comes into it, so and I've got built myself a MAME cab, which is excellent. So
Oh,
I've got all the games.
your name, isn't it? So
Yeah. Listen, Sean, I've got a few questions. I'm conscious of time. I know you've not had your dinner, so I don't want to keep you back any longer than I have to. So we'll just quickly run through these questions if that's okay.
oh,
Good
yep.
man. Right, first one is Batman. I am more than a bit of a C16 fanboy, and the cornerstone of my C16 collection is made up of many of Sean's games. My question would be simply, how did you extract so much from a system with so many quirky limitations?
Well, I think it's got limitations, but it had all the scrolling, and I mean the C16 had all these colours, and I think only one game I did so that used the colours to make it get dark at night. I think it was called Bandits at Zero. It was a bit like a Defender thingy, or what was that game that was on the VIC-20 by someone? Again, it was like planes taking off and shooting things. But I mean, the scrolling was all you really needed for a game. You could do that on the VIC-20, and then the C16 had plenty more memory. So any ideas you couldn't have done on the C16s on the VIC, out on the C16. So the scrolling and the sprites made such a difference.
So you basically used the strengths of the machine. That's what you're really doing, weren't you? Yeah.
Being able to change the colours on each line, and you can do so many effects with that.
Smashing. What was the C16 game that you're most proud of? Would you say?
I don't know. I mean, if you ask people, I'm sure it's true. I don't remember. Trailblazer was written first on the C16, and then
Was it really?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously it fit on the C64 when we did it afterwards. I think C64 had 2-player mode.
That's right. Yeah. Split screen.
But yeah, it was written on the C16 first. There wasn't that much difference between them all. It was so much better than the VIC. C16, C64. I think the memory cost so much then. Putting a C64 on it and with the extra chips.
Yeah. See, I never knew that. I thought it was out in the C64 first, but there you go.
Certainly written on the C16 first. I don't know which one came out.
Ah, right, well, one was published first, yeah. Brilliant. Ox is asking, what is the last game that you wrote contributed to? Would that be Kid Chaos?
No, I say we were.
Of course, you're doing games now, aren't you?
Yeah. I'm sure it's okay to say. The game
Absolutely, of course it is. Go for it, yeah.
It's on iPhone and Android, and it's called Golf Clash.
Golf
Clash.
I'll have a look at that. Golf Clash. If you wrote it, I'm sure it's good. Have you got any shooters that you've done at all?
I contributed a little part to it. That's all. I didn't like it. It's quite a good, talented team, all doing all sorts of things on it.
So what part do you play in the team then, Sean? Are you still programming? Are you more kind of managing them? Or?
No, I can't manage myself. Programming, bits of the engine and bits of physics. That's all really.
Aye. So Golf Clash. Anything else you could recommend?
Well, I say we worked for Warthog for a while. They did some of the Looney Tunes games and things like that. Was about 15 years ago as well. And otherwise, yeah, just bits and pieces here and there, really.
Lovely. I'll certainly have a look at that. Wonderful. Ox is also asking, there's a sizable homebrew scene on platforms like the C64, and even some old commercial programmers are getting in on the scene. Would you ever consider going back to develop a game on a platform like the Commodore 64?
I don't know if I'd be able to.
What's that?
Can't remember how it works, for one thing. I mean, it's one thing I think playing old games, but I can't believe people still writing new ones. It's crazy.
Oh, it's
someone who used to work with is bringing out the Hardware 64. It's called the 64.
I've seen it. Yeah.
I can't remember the name of the company, but they're bringing out. I think they're going to have all my old games on there. So it's actually a proper Commodore 64 in a little box.
I've seen that. Yeah. I mean, I've been watching a lot of demos for the Commodore 64, and it's incredible. There's still a vibrant demo scene, and some of the stuff that they're actually getting the Commodore 6. I mean, I've got a real 64 upstairs, and the stuff that they're making this thing do is just incredible. You wouldn't actually, you think, is that an Amiga or is that a Commodore 64? The graphics, they're getting more, they're even getting more colours in that. I don't know how they manage it.
Yeah.
Just absolutely jaw dropping.
Some people, you think, why aren't you writing games?
Aye, aye.
Especially on the Amiga. I mean, some of the Amiga ones were amazing.
Yeah, oh, I know, awesome. Is there any game that you programmed that never saw the light of day at all, Shaun?
Ooh. I was one, I think I called it Ding Back One Back Kick a Kangaroo. That's probably why it didn't ever appear. No, what it was like, oh, we'll have a shoot 'em up on this screen, and then we'll go on to you've got to dodge all the. I can't remember what it was. Games I've written. I think most of them got out. One of the ones that we liked doing, me and Andrew, was a Commodore 64 game. I think Alternative put it out. It was a little jet man flying left and right with all these, waves of aliens coming, attacking you and everything. I can't.
And that wasn't released, did you say?
I think that came out, but I don't know if it ever really saw the light of day. I don't know if many people have heard of it.
I can't even think of that one. I'm thinking Drop Zone. It sounds kind of similar to Drop Zone, I think, is it?
I know. I remember the name Drop Zone, but I'd have to Google it to see.
Yeah, it's kind of Defender, but again, it's like Jetpack with the wee man with the sort of the.
Oh right, yeah. Yeah, again, I probably saw that and thought, oh, I like a jetpack. I like the controllers of the jetpack because it was actually quite analog. You just sort of fire to go up, and then you drop down. You had to
That's right. Gravity took you down. Yeah.
To avoid things. The first games I did was published in Computer and Video Games in 1982. It was in BASIC and it was called Brick Blaster.
What's that?
It used the scrolling of the VIC-20 to scroll up, and you had to drop bombs and hit bricks, and it would just.
I'll need to have a look for that. I've got all the magazines in PDF. Brick Blaster by Shaun Southern. I'll need to have a look for that one.
When you had to type in.
I'm sure
you have listings in the magazines. You have to type them in yourself.
I typed in one and I ran it without saving it, and it just went to a black screen, and that was that, and I never did it again.
Oh yeah, that'd take a while typing them in.
Right, listen, Shaun, I've got one last batch of questions from this one guy, and then we can call it a day. This is Kingston LJ. Why doesn't Lotus Challenge 2 have in-game music? A great game, but in-game music would have made it perfect. Did it not have in-game music?
I can't remember.
I can't remember. No, I thought it did, but maybe, obviously not. Any reason why it wasn't in,
I don't know.
That's
I think the only thing I can think of possibly is that we wanted to try and make the sound effects through the atmospheric, and I mean, usually you give the first music, but I don't know why we wouldn't have it in the second one. The second one had all these weather effects and the wind and storm. The last level, the storm, it was like the most miserable scene you've ever seen in a computer game. It was chucking down and everything.
That would have been Scotland, I'm guessing, yeah.
Yeah, it might well be.
I've got to say, when I play arcade games, or like racing games, I don't want music in them. I want sound effects. I don't want music in games.
I really don't know why we wouldn't have done it though, because it's another option that people usually want. So.
I never knew that. He's also asking why then, or do you think Outrun is possible? Well, you've already said that. Would you never fancy getting back behind the keyboard and giving us a good Outrun on the Amiga? That would sell by the bucket load, honestly, it would.
On the Amiga?
Aye.
Oh, I don't know. I can't even remember how the Amiga worked very much anymore. People ring up and email get through and they say, oh, have you ever got, I would love to see the Supercars source code. Well, there you go. I don't know what it does. I'm looking at it thinking, how did I ever write this stuff? Because it was very, you have to put lots of little bits together. It wasn't like very structured. It was just a stream of little instructions that I don't know what they're all doing anymore, especially because they didn't comment.
You remind me of one of these rock stars for the 60s. He doesn't remember actually much about it, but you put out all this awesome stuff, but you forget most of it.
Well, I've got bits and pieces and graphics. I don't know if I could write an Amiga game without a lot relearning everything.
I'm sure that would go down a storm. And the last couple, excuse me, would you be interested in making a modern but retro-styled homage to the Lotus series for Steam? Do you think that would ever happen?
I could write Lotus, for whatever. I mean, it's very simple, the code and what it did. I don't think you get the Lotus cars in it.
Nah.
I say the actual controls and the how the graphics were put together is very simple, really. I think even someone's written to me saying, "How does Lotus Routine work?" And I was like sending him code saying, "So you do this and then this," and eventually got his own version of it going.
Really? Aye.
But I don't know. It all depends on how many people are interested in it, really.
I think, well, I mean, I'm quite, I kind of keep an eye on the scene, and I think something, I mean, the Lotus, I know for a fact the Lotus is it's one of the games in the Amiga that people always remember, and I think it would absolutely, an idea for a Kickstarter or something, I think, Shaun, but something
Right.
something to think about. And the last couple, you mentioned Kid Chaos. Do you feel that pushed the Amiga to its limits? Was that pretty
I
much?
don't know what we were doing with the colours and things. We were making, you could have, it had about 3 layers of parallax scrolling and everything, and that really was sort of playing, silly buggers for a better word, with all the things in the background, changing the colours on every few lines so that you could have like red flowers up here, green flowers down here, and all these things. A lot of it was down to the artists. I
When did
told
that
them
come out, Shaun? What year was that?
it's going to be about 90 probably. No, hold on, 90,
Nah,
90,
that's quite early on.
92, 93, yeah, I think.
I'll need to have a look for that kid. It's not even one when I was looking at the list of games you'd done. I hadn't even heard of. There's another something Chaos. No, Kid Gloves. There's a game called Kid Gloves on Amiga, and I was getting muddled up with that. It's a platform game, but
I know people put anything on YouTube, but there's people playing Kid Chaos from start to end and getting like 100% on all the levels, and it takes 3 hours. I mean, I suppose you can go and find the bit that you got stuck on, and that's how you do it and everything. It was mad. I think it was a very involved game, lots of really nice little touches in it. It's just, I don't know, I think more affected that the Amiga sort of had just started to drop off. And I think we made it a bit too hard. We're too close to it. We knew how to get through all the levels, and if you didn't know what you're doing, it was a bit like, God.
aye. Wait, were you programming? Did you program on Kid
I
Chaos?
programmed that, and Andrew did all the art for it. Andrew Morris, the artist, he did all the art, and I say that's probably why it took 2 years.
And it was only 2 years programmed it as well. Yeah, that's amazing.
Okay.
Brilliant. And the very, very, very last question from a chap called Stunt Thumb, I think it's called. He would like to know how you managed to put the shadow effect on the ST version of Supercars. The shadow in Supercars and the ST. How did you manage the shadow?
Under the cars were probably drawn, or they must have been drawn on after the car. The shadows under the cars would be drawn on first, and the shadows, I think he's probably talking about when the cars goes on into the shadow bits.
Must be, aye.
Must have had another layer of shadow that we just rendered on. I can't
So almost like have a shadow, one sprite is a shadow, then the actual car sprite slightly offset, so it looked like it was a shadow type thing, would it be?
Well, that would be under the
Something.
car. It means when the car goes into the shadows, because I was looking at Supercars the other day.
And it, right.
Remember?
You remember, you did it anyway, that's the important thing.
Yeah, ask him to get in touch. I'll send him the source code. He can have a look himself.
I'll do just that. Listen, Shaun, that is 20:38. We're 8 minutes over the hour. Thank you very, very much for taking time. I know you don't really do many of these things, so I'm really, really honoured to have you on. It's been absolutely wonderful talking to you. Yeah.
Yes, I'm amazed there's so many people still interested, but
Yeah, well, I mean, when I got a lot of thumbs up when I mentioned that I was getting you on tonight. So I said that you're a hero of mine. I played all your games back in the day, and to be able to talk to you at first hand is just absolutely wonderful. So, listen, thank you very much for joining you, Shaun. Best of luck for the future, and take care, eh?
Okay, thank you.